Hello everyone, I'm Tusharika, and today it's my privilege to be in conversation with someone who has spent decades working towards peace, communication, understanding and growth in South Asia. Miss Rita Manchanda. Hello ma'am. Ma'am, you've spent decades working with communities to build growth, understanding, peace as a journalist, writer, and peace advocate. Is there any experience encountered in all of these years throughout your journey that you would like to share with us?
Well, namaste, salam. Uh, you know, actually, I have a South Asian identity. Firstly, I am the daughter of refugees. So my parents come from Pakistan. My husband, Tapan Bose, his mother comes from what was then East Bengal, East Pakistan, and now Bangladesh. I have worked in Colombo, in Sri Lanka, for a year and a half. I've lived and worked in Kathmandu. I have, like many people, when I'm in a national park, Manas National Park in the northeast, I cross the border into Bhutan. I mean, like I'm chasing birds.
Right.
So, and my vehicle is going, and that's it. So, in a sense, and of course, I worked in Afghanistan. And for many, in fact, I still work on Afghanistan, and I've been there many times. The only country actually I have not really stepped into is Maldives. So I'm hoping one day. Huh? So in a sense, both in terms of the way that I've grown up, professionally, as well as my own interest, my activism, I am actually regional. I am South Asian in identity.
Right. Thank you, ma'am. So, ma'am, I'd like to share that South Asia remains as one of the least interacted, least connected regions in the world. So, can you tell me what can youth work towards as a young generation of people staying connected with this region in all of the 7 countries of South Asia, and what mindset should they have to stay connected instead of just simply talking about it rather than just interacting?
Well, my generation was privileged. We were actually able to visit these countries without much problem. And till, in fact, I've been part of many networks, South Asia Forum for Human Rights, Women's Regional Network. I mean, just so many networks which connected us. And I work a lot, I'm a feminist. I work on building peace across borders, both in terms of scholarship as well as in terms of activism. And we've never had a problem. So it's your generation really that in fact has no connection. I mean, I'm part of and I'm a founding member of Pak India Forum for Peace and Democracy. We used to have joint conventions. Hundreds of Pakistanis would come, hundreds of Indians would go across the border, because after all, the hostile visa regimes are what kept us apart. What enabled us to challenge these separate narratives were that we were able to see each other, talk to each other. And when you said, what is the language in which, of course, your generation has to find its own language. Maybe it will be far more art and culture. Maybe it will be far more geoeconomics. Maybe it will be something, because this is, everyone found its own. For us, major issues were political issues. So we had to deal with that. Major issues were women living under Muslim law. So, all kinds of what are the pressing issues of the day. But I've always been involved in networks that have been quite political. It's wonderful when you meet, you talk about the same food, you talk about the same music that we grew up with, all of us, the same birds that we're familiar with, the trees, everything is so common. But we also went beyond that to say not only comfort levels, but even politically we need to engage. And you're absolutely correct when you say there's so little interaction. I mean, SARC is a defunct organization at the moment. There are hopes that it will be revived because there is an urgency to revive. Not only because, after all, today we're eating Afghan cherries. Why? Because they've worked out some transit agreements. And that is something that's going to, of course, expand hugely because there are business interests. But it is also that if you want to be, and India wants to be a big player, if you want to be a big player, you have to have peace in the region. And it's not only, I mean, of course, this is an interest that what is it that we can share, what is it that we can work together with without being the big brother. But it's also internationally, there's a lot of pressure on the region to work together and not to fight. So, but it's for youth to find its own language, like you've done. I mean, who would have thought about the Cockroach Janata Party?
Right.
It's a language that you people thought of. We still don't even understand it. But this is it. So it's always will be, and it will have to be people-led. Because we know that our governments are trapped in their own narratives. So it will be people who will find their own language, find in fact the medium that works for them. And I think music, art really is a huge way forward. But in the end also you have to have content, you have to have the intellectual content.
Right. So ma'am, do you think that our education system plays a role in that? Because we teach, I guess, a bit less about South Asian countries in our syllabus.
It's not only that we teach, even the common heritage that we have, we're trying to erase it.
Right.
You know, if you go to Pakistan, where do they begin history? Yes, they will acknowledge Mohenjo-daro and Harappa and say it's firstly all in, a lot of it is in Pakistan, yes. And they'll talk about an Indus Valley civilization. But otherwise they begin with Muhammad of Ghazni.
Right.
There is no prehistory. So it's also that a lot of the history, a lot of the education is a very truncated one. And then I worked in Colombo. Right. And I know that because I was working with the Commonwealth on the peace process, but I also was very interested in understanding India-Sri Lanka relations. And I found the books that I was very familiar with, they'd never heard of. And I'd never heard of their basic books. So, I mean, this is a huge issue, not only of distortion, of erasure in curriculum, but we don't read each other. We read each other when we go abroad. Then we are, of course, South Asian. But when we're here, somehow we get isolated into island country, into Big Brother, into all kinds of problems.
Right. So ma'am, you and Mr. Tapan Bose have worked together personally and professionally as well for people-to-people connection across South Asia. Is there any of his visions and thoughts and contributions that you would like to share with us? And what future do you see for South Asia? You
know, there are the giants of South Asia. I mean, they're people that I look up to as an earlier generation. Right. And they are Rahman Saab, Mubashir Hassan, Kumari Jayavardhane, scholars, activists, people who really shaped the South Asian vision. Tapan Bose is one of them. Not only was he, I mean, he's a well-known documentary filmmaker. In fact, in a sense, the founder of what was called Ajit Prop filmmaking in our region, with his work and An Indian Story, Beyond Genocide, Behind the Barricades on Punjab. So a great man, but you know, he shifted in the 1990s, and very few people understand it, even I don't understand it. He jumped. Human rights were always a core concern of his, but he jumped from being a filmmaker and running a fairly successful institution called Cinemart into taking over the South Asia Forum for Human Rights. At that point of time in the 1990s, there was a lot of human rights activity. 1993 was the World Human Rights Conference. So there was a lot of traction on this. But nonetheless, for him to jump from filmmaking to running an institution called the South Asia Forum for Human Rights, which actually wasn't very active then, and he built it. He used his own political capital of connections, and he built it into, at that point of time, for 2.5 decades, 3 decades, the premier South Asia institution. And I joined in 2000. We worked on, my portfolios were, because I brought a gender lens to international security. So I worked on women in conflict and auditing peace processes. We had the major flagship was, and I wish you could have been part of that. We had the Human Rights Peace Orientation course where people from all over South Asia came. And for 2 weeks, it was 2 weeks residential and 3 months non-residential. But it was, you know, I mean, some of the most active people today working on South Asia are graduates of that course. I mean, you know, any number of things that it seeded. Unfortunately, there are major problems in terms of funding, in terms of our countries are not very generous with registering South Asia institutions. In the end, we had to actually register it in Hong Kong. And that was then not viable. But that was there. He found, I mean, he's co-founder of the Pak-India Forum for Peace and Democracy. And, you know, I mean, you may not be able to include this, but this is such a wonderful story. 1993 was the Vienna Human Rights Conference. And as major human rights activist, he was invited. And Rahman Saab and Asma Jahangir, one of the big players from Pakistan, they were sitting there and they were watching some of our best diplomats fight. And then they also saw all the other international diplomats almost yawning, almost sleeping, because this is a routine thing. India and Pakistan will fight. They will say, I'm right, you know, they're competing narratives. So these people were watching and saying, what is this? They're not discussing the real human rights issues of our country. And they were discussing. And they said, why not? And that's how the Pak-India Forum idea emerged. From that, watching that, saying, no, but we people have a different agenda. And we need to forge a people's agenda. You know, accidents sometimes create, and Pak-India Forum is still, it's gone through, let's just say, for a quiet period, because after all, you know, the youth have worked out how to face this government. We actually, eventually, it became more difficult. People were being arrested, people were being, so for a while it became quiet. It's always a self-funded. We all pay our membership fees, and there is really, I mean, people come and stay here. There's no money. The money is what we raise, and it's so it's never funded. So they couldn't hit us with FCRA, but nonetheless they made the visa situation impossible. Or they kept saying, it's too insecure, you can't go. We were to have a meeting in Peshawar, and they said, no, we can't provide for your security. So we said, we don't want your security. They said, no, you cannot go. So it became difficult, but we've just had a national convention, and it was, I wish you could have come for that. And it was, we experimented with what the youth were telling us to do. I mean, there were us veterans, but there was the youth saying, so we tried it with Ishq, Siyasat Awam. Ishq, which meant love, mohabbat, whatever, and art, through art. Siyasat, politics, Awam, people. And so it was very much hybrid, meaning both political as well as cultural. And Faiz, Sahil Ludhianvi, Pash, Amrita Pritham. So, you know, it's, and it was very successful. Lots of, not as, I won't say it wasn't tumultuous like it used to be. We used to have multitudes. This time, even if you get 200 people, that's not bad at a time when you will be called anti-national. So that's, I mean, but you are the ones who have to carry it forward. And but I am a strong believer in intergenerational learning. We need to learn from you, and you need to learn from us. Because why would you want to invent the wheel again and again?
Right. So, ma'am, is there any message that you would like to give to the youth to stay connected?
I think you are already showing us the way. But there also has to be a moment where we can then have a conversation, where we learn from each other, Because frankly, today all of us are very humbled by the fact that what we couldn't do, what we couldn't even think of doing, they've done. But there's a lot we've done too. So it would be good that there would be a sharing. And I think there is a recognition that we need to learn from each other.
Right, ma'am. I think one such instance was the recent protest, I guess. There was there's the Park and India clash that we have seen for many years, but on social media, I am a youth myself, so I am Gen Z. So I saw on social media that the Pakistan youths were showing huge support for the Indian youth. So
I'm hoping that one day you will actually travel to all these South Asian countries,
love to, ma'am.
and or that they will travel to ours. You know, there used to be Ashoka Fellows, and I would meet people. I mean, as I said, we were very privileged because I have gone to so many conferences. They have come to so many of our meetings at multiple levels. I've lived in their homes, and you know, unless you live in their homes, you don't really know them, and they don't know you. But there is so much there, and we're hoping that you're going to totally redefine the narrative, because the problems are common and the problems are overwhelming. Education, poverty, development, women's rights, issues of social cohesion, issues of movements, all this, and you have the energy to redefine that, but also to, I mean, you know, it's something I've been saying at multiple levels, in multiple subjects. It has to be a transgenerational learning.
right. So, ma'am, would you like to share one fun experience from any of the countries that you visited?
You know, I'm working on a people's foreign policy at the moment, or a people's international policy, because my area is security and foreign policy. And it's since I've lived in these countries, I know what a mismatch what our diplomats are trying to do and how it's interpreted. Why is it that we're not liked? Why is it that we get so many things wrong? Who are we talking to? Do we not talk to the young? How come we didn't know that Bangladesh was going to happen? Sri Lanka, India. How come? Who do we talk to? So that's why I'm interested in people's international policy, regional policy, and trying to understand why do we go wrong?
So that's it, ma'am. Thank you so much for sharing your experience with us and insights with us. I hope it continues to inspire the youth.
I hope so too, but I have a feeling the controller, Mazhar, is going to have a problem. He wanted me to be very sanitized.
No, ma'am, it's fine. I guess you should.
Yeah, it's fine for you.
Right. Yeah.
See, I work a lot on refugees, which I haven't even talked about, because he said, no, sensitivity.
Oh.